And we're back for another Chalk or Not segment, this time talking about UFC Seattle, where we have 8 chalk spots out of the 12 total fights to talk about. And a reminder that this is just chalk that is anything minus 185 or wider, and I'll give you guys my opinion on whether you should be parlaying it, playing it straight, or avoiding it altogether, and hopefully avoiding some of those landmines that we've been seeing in recent weeks with a lot of these chalky spots not coming through and a lot of these parlay boys having to rip up some of their tickets. So hopefully I can be of assistance for you guys here. Reminder that there are 3 other events other than UFC going down this weekend that I will be covering. On a Friday, we have LFA going down, but I will have a full card breakdown for you guys on Thursday right here on the YouTube page. But you can find track plays for that, as well as predictions and quick picks for OKTAGON and KSW, all on the Lock of the Night Patreon page, where I'll have track plays for those cards as well. Make sure you guys check it out. Link in the description below. Once again, that is the Lock of the Night Patreon page. A ton of great content on there. You guys just get a glimpse of it here on the YouTube page. All right. Without further ado, let's get into this chalk or not segment. First fight up we're going to be talking about is actually the first fight of the night, with Modestas Bukauskas coming in at minus 270 as he goes up against Rafael Sequeira. Now, I did back Sequeira last time around, and it was probably the worst UFC debut we've ever seen, considering how easily he allowed Ibo Aslan to bully him and eventually finish him within 50 seconds. Now, I expect Bukauskas to win this matchup, utilizing his striking advantage and showcasing his grappling defense, but I think that there's a little bit too much of a recency bias factor here in terms of the line, and I think that we should see Bukauskas closer to that minus 185 minus 200 line. I think this line is just a little bit too wide, and I believe a lot of that has to do with Sequeira getting bull rushed last time around, and I think he'll showcase a little bit more resistance this time, which could make this a little bit more competitive than the odds actually indicate. Thus, I'm going to have to go with Bukauskas winning this matchup, but categorize him as not chalk-worthy. Next up, Nursultan Ruziboev going up against Eric Makhaniko. Ruziboev coming in at minus 270, taking on a short notice replacement here who's also making his UFC debut. But Ruziboev is looking to bounce back from that loss that he suffered to Joaquin Buckley last year when he went down to 170 pounds, but he's coming back up to 185 pounds, which is probably where he's best, standing at 6'5". You got to believe that weight cut won't be as bad for him. He's a very aggressive fighter, but that might work into the game plan of Makhaniko, who may not have as much experience as him, but Makhaniko is a very good game planner and very good with executing it. I think his striking is good enough to stay away from too much danger from the Ruziboev side, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Makhaniko utilizes BJJ brown belt and look to utilize the same type of approach that Joaquin Buckley did by looking to take Ruziboev to the ground where he is not as dangerous as he is on the feet. Thus, at minus 270, I think there are too many holes for Ruziboev to be this big of a chalky spot against a guy that's as good of a game planner as Eric Makhaniko. Thus, I'll go with Ruziboev not being chalk-worthy in this fight. Next up, Javid Basharat coming in at minus 250, going up against Ricky Simón. Now, Simón is looking to avoid a 4-fight losing streak, while Javid Basharat is looking to bounce back from the first loss of his professional career. Although he had a fight against Ayman Zahabi last time around where he was a pretty big favorite and fumbled the bag there, this is a spot that is a little bit more ideal for him from a stylistic standpoint. This is a fight where he can utilize his striking advantage, batter the lead leg of Ricky Simón, keep him at distance, shuck the takedowns off, and then just make Simón pay on the feet, considering all the mistakes and holes that he leaves with the power striking approach that Simón normally brings to the table. Thus, at minus 250, I think Basharat can implement his game pretty easily here, and that should be enough for him to get back on the winning track, and I believe he is chalk-worthy in this spot. Next up, Mansour Abdul Malik coming in at minus 1,000, going up against Nick Klein. Abdul Malik should absolutely squash Nick Klein in this spot. I believe his physicality and explosiveness and power is going to be enough to shuck off any type of grappling approach that Klein will be looking to bring here. But even with that said, and even as I said a couple weeks ago when Peyton Talbot was a minus 1,000 favorite against Raoni Barcelos, you can't play these wide lines no matter what the advantage is, considering how volatile mixed martial arts could be. Obviously, Barcelos the approach that he took was not volatile at all. It was very easy for him to take down Talbot and keep him there, whereas Klein is going to need something a little bit more volatile and chaotic to try to spring the upset in this spot. And he is capable of doing that. But I think Abdul Malik will be able to control this pace, really just get to his power striking style and put away Nick Klein in the first round, which is why I think taking him in the first round to win by knockout is likely the best way to to approach this matchup. I think we'll see Abdul Malik knock out Klein very quickly here, but even if he can't, you don't want to get stuck on minus 1,000 compared to the plus 100-ish line you can get on that specific prop. Thus, as I always say, for anything over minus 700, this is not chalk worthy. All right, next up, Alonzo Menafield coming in at minus 240, going up against UFC newcomer and short notice replacement Julius Walker. Menafield is looking to buck the 2-fight losing streak that he's on and avoid a 3-fight losing streak, which would be the first of its kind in his career. In his past 2 fights, he's been knocked out by Carlos Ulberg and Azamat Mirzakhanov, and now he gets a guy in Julius Walker who's undefeated and could present some problems in the UFC, but I believe there are a little bit too many holes in Walker's game to be completely confident on that side. With that said, physicality and athleticism is usually all it takes in the light heavyweight division at this level to be successful. And I could absolutely see a case where Walker utilizes his footwork and his speed to touch up Menafield from distance and possibly take advantage of that diminishing durability. I think the ultimate result here in my prediction is going to be Menafield eventually clipping Walker because of some of the striking defense issues I've seen in his game. And I think we'll see Menafield put him away, but I think the line is a little bit too wide there to be completely confident in the spot. I think Menafield is the automatic and just default favorite here, considering he's the UFC veteran and has been training for this spotlight or at least this weekend. But Walker could surprise some people. We don't know what his ceiling is, but he looks like he has the athleticism, explosivity, and power, and that might end up being enough for him to pull off the upset here. So I'm going to have to go with Menafield not being chalk-worthy in the spot, even though I expect him to win this fight. Next up, Gene Silva coming in at minus 550, taking on the returning Melsik Bagdasaryan. Let me try that again. Melsik Bagdasaryan, who's returning from a torn labrum, and I believe it's been close to a year and a half since we've seen him in action. But talking about Gene Silva, who's been skyrocketing ever since joining the UFC off the Contender series, the public loves him. Hence why he finds himself at minus 550, but it seems like some of the sharps are starting to trim that line down and taking shots on Bagdasaryan, as I did see Silva closer to minus 700 just about 24 hours ago. And I think they're right. The only thing keeping me from being more confident to fade Gene Silva here, the layoff and potential ramifications of the injury that Melsik is coming back from. But if Melsik comes back looking even 80% of what we've seen in the past, he can make this a very competitive striking battle. He's a nasty striker that might have a bit of a speed advantage, and he should be able to counter Gene Silva effectively here, and that could make this fight a lot closer than minus 550 indicates. I get it. Gene Silva's been more active. Gene Silva's been eye-catching. He's been very impressive as of late, but do not overlook the skills and striking that Bagdasaryan brings to the table, and do not overlook the fact that Bagdasaryan might be the best striker that Gene Silva has fought since joining the UFC roster. Thus, Gene Silva is not chalk-worthy in this spot. All right, moving to the co-main event, we got Anthony Fluffy Hernandez coming in at minus 300, going up against Brendan Allen. Like I said, this is a rematch of a fight that took place back in 2018, where Anthony Hernandez was able to defeat Brendan Allen over the course of 25 minutes, winning the LFA middleweight title and showcasing that he was a superior grappler. And I think that was showcased once again here, as the wrestling and scrambling ability of Hernandez is going to be too much for Allen to keep up with. Look for Hernandez to just keep the pressure on him, keep him on his back, keep him up against the cage. His submission defense should be good enough to stay away from any danger there. And then from there, I think we'll see Hernandez dictate the pace, control the pressure, and just pretty much win every minute of this matchup. As long as he doesn't get clubbed and subbed here, which I'm kind of more confident that he'll be able to avoid at this stage in his career, he should be fine to go out there and just do what Anthony Hernandez does. Thus, I'm going to go Hernandez being chalk worthy in this spot at minus 300. And now the final fight to talk about for this Chalk or Not segment is going to be in the main event, as we got Yadong Song coming in at minus 265, going up against former flyweight and bantamweight champion Henry Cejudo. Now Song is looking to bounce back after that loss to Petr Yan back at UFC 299, and he's taking off some solid time, although it was involuntary, as he was stating that he's been looking to fight ever since then, but this is the perfect matchup for him to finally take, and that could position himself back into title talks should he get his hand raised in this spot. He is obviously a very nasty striker who's developed a very solid takedown defense game as well. But as we saw in the Yan fight, if he can't dictate the pace and if he can't control where the fight takes place, that's where we see him start to slow down and opponents start to pull away, just as Yan was able to do in the second and third rounds. I believe Yadong can stop the takedowns of Cejudo here, and I think Yadong will be more dangerous in the striking realm, and I don't think he'll be as hesitant to let his hands go as when he fought a much nastier striker in Petr Yan. Cejudo's no slouch in the striking. Obviously, he can have some success there, but I think he's going to struggle to establish that here against a younger, faster, and more powerful striker. But even with that said, this minus 265 line is absolutely disrespectful to one of the best lower weight class fighters that we've ever seen. I get Cejudo is 38 years old, but I wouldn't be surprised if his style is going to be able to pay off here. Maybe mixing in some takedowns, getting some volume striking off, but keeping Song Yadong on his toes by throwing different looks at him, changing up the game on him, changing up the levels often enough that Song can't get comfortable. My ultimate prediction is going to be Song winning this fight, just as I believe that Henry Cejudo is just at the tail end of his career. But even at this line, we have to be disciplined and smart. And I believe at minus 265, this line is just too wide. Thus, I believe that Song Yadong is not chalk worthy in this spot. There you guys go. Over the course of 8 fights, I only believe 2 of the chalky fighters are worth it. But I'm sure some people will still look at parlay some of those spots that I do not believe are chalk worthy. They still might come through. Don't get me wrong. But you might be sweating it out a little bit more than you're expecting, or you might be forced to rip up your ticket because of the underdog pulling off the upset. I did my best to try to warn you. Now it's on you to put those parlays together or not. We'll see how it goes. All right. I'll be back tomorrow for the quick picks version of the UFC Seattle breakdown, and I'll also be back to drop the Legacy Warriors podcast to break down LFA 202. See you guys tomorrow. Peace.